Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube. I'm Sarah Calloway, and you may have noticed that things look a little bit different today. That's because Eugene Daniel and Connor Reel, who are usually the hosts of the stream, they are off today. So I'm Sarah Calloway, and I'm joined by Nia Campbell.
Hey,
And
how are you doing?
how are you?
I'm doing good. You've already done a stream today, so how are you
I
feeling?
have. I'm good. For people who don't normally watch this stream, they don't normally see us. Naya and I are the producers, so we chime in occasionally, but we're mostly just pushing the buttons. You might see us on the high camera from time to time, but today it's a little bit different. So we're rolling with it, and we've got a full show for you guys today. So our top story this morning at 6 o'clock. The FAA, they rolled back, they cut all of the flight restrictions, the flight reductions that were lingering since the government shutdown. So that happened at 6 o'clock this morning. Air travel should slowly get back to normal now that the FAA has rolled that back. So they were reducing flights at 40 major airports across the country. They were supposed to reduce that by 10%. And they were going to slowly work their way up to that. Lawmakers eventually came to a deal. They passed a continuing resolution in order to reopen the government. And so we only got to about the 6% instead of the 10%. But because of those flight reductions, it caused a lot of delays for people, a lot of cancellations. And I know a lot of people have questions about what this means ahead of the holiday season, because air travel it's going to take a little bit more time in order to get back to normal. So we brought in an expert to answer some of your questions, especially since the holidays are very, very close. So we're joined by Dr. Mahmood Khan from Virginia Tech. He is a hospitality and tourism expert. He is here to answer our questions about holiday travel, what we can expect with things getting back to normal, with everything going back to normal. So AAA did release a travel forecast talking about how 82 million Americans are expected to travel for Thanksgiving. While most will drive, millions more are expected to hop on a flight. So I guess my first question to you is, what is the state of air travel now that they've lifted these restrictions at airports this morning? What is the outlook?
Thanks for having me. And I am happy to hear the news this morning that they are lifting the restriction because it's coming at the most appropriate time when we are so close to the holiday season. As you mentioned, the traveler will be millions of travelers will be going. Most of them will be going by road, but still the airlines is one of the major transport system that many families use to connect themselves. So it is coming at the right time, but I hope it will give enough time for the airlines to catch up with the lag. Mainly the workers who have been working behind the scenes, like the traffic controllers. That was one of the main thing that would have an impact on the flight shortages.
And so, because things are going to take a little bit longer to get back to normal, do you have any sort of estimate on how long you think, lingering delays and cancellations will last, especially because we're a week and a half out from Thanksgiving?
I think it will be just before Thanksgiving things will improve, but definitely before Christmas, because the arrangements that most people make for Christmas is at the Thanksgiving time. And so I think Thanksgiving, it is getting kind of very close. And with all the lifting of the traffic control, we'll have a lot of flight delays and as well as cancellations. It might have an impact on the air travels. But I would say it is better that control has been lifted, but it is too soon, or it is too close to Thanksgiving. It may not have that much of an impact as coming back to normal.
So, for anybody who is still on the fence, I know some people may have held off on buying plane tickets during the government shutdown if they were planning on traveling for Thanksgiving. What would be your advice to those people who held off? Would you recommend that they drive rather than fly? I know the roads can be very congested, especially if you're going somewhere several states away. So, what is your advice for anybody who may have held off and is planning on flying for Thanksgiving?
My advice would be take shorter trips, close to home. Yeah, drive if possible. Use any other transportation methods. Airlines will be very difficult, and that would be mainly if they are planning on going far away from their location. So I would say shorter um, visits. Maybe it might be a very good time to have family group meetings as well as visiting families. That might compensate for some of the things that they might be missing by going far away from home.
Good to know. Thank you. Do you think prices? Do you have any insight on what prices are going to look like? Has the shutdown and the lingering cuts, has that impacted airline prices since all of this began?
I think the prices, airline prices have gone up quite a bit. And I don't think they will come down during this period of time. And that should be one of the major consideration for those who would like to make the reservation in a hurry, that they should be willing to pay more because of the number of flights and that will be going and the compressed time that is available. So the best thing would be to find some alternative travel method, and I think driving would be one of those, depending on how congested the travel routes are going to be for car travel.
And I mentioned earlier the FAA was going to reduce flights at 40 U.S. airports at a max of 10%. Because the shutdown ended early and lawmakers were able to reach a deal to reopen the government, it never hit that 10% max. It only got to around 6%. If this hit a 10% max, what do you think would have happened if it had hit the 10% max? Because we were already seeing so many cancellations and delays before we hit the max. I'm just curious to know if we hit that max and then we hadn't reached a deal as early as they did, what that would have looked like for travelers.
I think it will depend on the staffing triggers that have come down to a reasonable level. And I think the staffing will be enough to cope up with any kind of unnecessary delays and so on. But I think because of the short timing, there will be some delays and some kind of staffing concerns.
And you've touched on the staffing levels just a little bit so far. So it's air traffic controllers and I know TSA officers. Can you go into more in depth about what was going on there and why? I mean, it played a really big part in why the FAA reduced those flights. Are you able to give more insight onto more about why there was such a shortage?
Staffing controllers are federal employees, and they have to work no matter what the situation is. And they were under a lot of stress as well as financial restrictions. And that was one of the limitations which I'm sure FAA must have considered in seeing that that relief is given. And it during this time when the shortages were being felt, there was a lot of other pending things that were an indirect effect of those. The training and hiring, modernization, then not using technology and so on. All of those were tied up with the staffing control that was done. So I think slowly it will recover, but I think it will take some time.
Thank you. So these delays and cancellations could linger a little longer, especially into Thanksgiving. And I had speculated on this before the shutdown deal was reached, and the FAA announced that they were going to be reducing flights. We were talking because this is now the longest shutdown in U.S. history, and we were just having conversations in our newsroom just about what it was going to be that brought lawmakers on both sides of the aisle together to reach a deal, because for a long time it looked like they were just at an impasse. Do you think that the flight reductions played a big part in lawmakers coming together to reach a deal? Because a lot of times with flights, and we saw it during the pandemic, it was a major blow to airports when they weren't able to operate at full levels. Do you think that played any part in lawmakers coming together to finally reach a deal?
I think that might be the reason, mainly the staffing of those who are controllers. That is a very serious issue, which normally that is being considered because they were under a lot of stress. So I think that might be one of the reasons why they decided to have that, particularly the pressure of holiday season and the airlines having the difficulty of coping up with the holidays and so on. So I think there was 2 or 3 different factors must have played in their decision.
And so, as we're coming to the end of our time together on this interview, is there anything like maybe 3 things that anybody who is traveling, whether it's air travel, by car for the holidays, what are 3 things that people should know before they leave?
I would say the first thing would be pack a lot of patience because things will not be normal very quickly. So that is one thing that they should be sure to expect the unexpected. Secondly, they should not try to have that impact their enjoying the holidays. And so they should they should be able to quickly change the plans and go from one alternative to the other alternatives. And that is one. The third one would be to see if they can go by car or to the nearest distance that they can think of and try to find some locations or destinations which will make their holidays much more enjoyable.
All right, thank you. And before we say goodbye, I'm going to ask my co-host, Nia Campbell, if she has any questions for you, because I don't know if you're traveling for the holidays, Nia. I have family here in Virginia Beach, so I don't plan on getting on a plane anytime soon. Nia, do you have any questions for Dr. Khan?
I do not have any questions. This was very insightful, though, because I am traveling for Christmas.
Great. All right, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Enjoy the holidays. I would very much. This is what I say because I'm in the travel industry. Mm-hmm. We would like to promote those, and these occasions are the ones which would like people to enjoy as much as possible.
Yes, especially those who also have to work the holidays, who are in air travel. Yes, so,
exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Khan. This was very insightful, and I hope you have a great holidays.
You too. Thanks so much. Both of you enjoy the holidays.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye. All right. So that was Dr. Mahmood Khan, a hospitality and tourism expert with Virginia Tech. He was touching on how long, we could see these lingering impacts on air travel now that the FAA has lifted the flight reductions. They did that at 6 o'clock this morning. So he was just touching on, how long we could see those impacts at airports, especially because AAA has said that 82 million Americans are supposed to be traveling for the holidays. So most of those people will drive, but again, even just the thought of traveling through an airport during the the holidays is a lot to take in, especially right after the shutdown and the flight reductions and everything having to get back on track since then. So that was really insightful. He said that, just to paraphrase, he said that we'll probably still see some impacts through Thanksgiving. It should be okay by Christmas, but we'll just have to wait and see. So Naya, what do you have any plans for Thanksgiving?
No plans for Thanksgiving because I'm on call here.
Okay.
But
I'm working as well.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
really? So we'll be here together.
Yeah.
Maybe we could cook some food for each other.
Yes. Okay.
And put a little meal together.
Yes. All right. So now you can see we're joined by meteorologist Taylor Stephenson. And I know when I walked out of my house this morning, I had to defrost my windows on my car. It was a chilly start, but the temperatures are going to tick up a little bit throughout the week.
Yeah, they will for sure. I mean, we're going to see temperatures getting back closer to the upper 60s, lower 70s by the time we get into about Friday into the weekend. So not going to stay in this really cold pattern for a long time, but I am tracking sunny and some breezy weather for today as we do have a cooler start to the work week. Rain chances, though, start to tick up after we get into the overnight and on Tuesday, and then we have rain chances building in on Wednesday morning. Right now, from our Thompson Creek Window Company sky view, it's a beautiful start to the afternoon for us. Temperatures right now are in the middle 50s with a lot of sunshine. The wind starting to back off a little bit down to about 5 to 10 miles per hour. But dew point temperatures are in the 20s, which is extremely, extremely dry. Those blue H's, that's high pressure that's in control for us. As high pressure stays in control, that will give us those sunny skies throughout the day. And we will see some big changes coming as we get into tomorrow. Right now from our radar, you can see radar is sweeping very quiet at the moment. And walking you through the rest of your day, temperatures will plateau. Highs today will be about 5 to 10 degrees below normal for this time of year, with highs in the middle to upper 50s. We should be somewhere around 60 to 61 degrees for a middle to late November day. As we progress through the evening time, temperatures fall off very quickly under clear skies. Temperatures tonight will be in the upper 30s to the lower 40s. But as we get into tomorrow, that's when our big changes come. So overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, definitely make sure you have a jacket. We'll be in the lower 40s around the water with middle 30s inland. And then you see that huge low pressure system. I'll point it out here on the maps as I get my pointer out. This big system here, this is our next system that will track our direction over the coming 24 hours or so, and that will increase our rain chances for late Tuesday into the morning on Wednesday. So starting off tomorrow morning in the upper 40s to the lower 50s, and then by the afternoon we're back into the middle to upper 50s and lower 60s with increasing cloud cover. By the time we get into the overnight, it's overcast skies, and then rain chances pick up right around midnight and roll in from northwest to southeast. So places like Tappahannock, West Point, Chincoteague will get the first of the rain heading to the south side of northeastern North Carolina through the course of the morning. So by 6 a.m. during the heart of the work commute, we will see some scattered showers, some heavy at times, temperatures in the upper 40s and lower 50s, and then the rain will move out by the afternoon, and we'll see a lot more sunshine for the second half of the day. Kind of like a tale of 2 days on Wednesday. Rain to start off, but then sunshine by the afternoon, and highs in the upper 50s to the middle 60s. Now, one thing that I do want to note is that as we get closer to the end of hurricane season, you can see that right now the Hurricane Center says that we will not have any tropical activity over the next few days. As you can see here on our map, over the next 7 days, we should remain fairly quiet there in the Atlantic. And during this time of the year, the water temperatures get super cold, and so it really can't support tropical activity. So no concerns there. Your 5 to 7 day forecast shows temperatures in the middle 50s for today and tomorrow, with increasing cloud cover throughout the day tomorrow, and then morning showers on Wednesday morning. Highs rise to the 60s by Wednesday and Thursday, and then by Friday we're getting closer to 70 degrees. Early into next week, and then by the end of this week, so the weekend, we will see a big pattern change again. We'll have our next front come through. That will bring us some increased cloud cover. Plus, we will see showers possible on Saturday. And Saturday is the Grand Illumination Parade in downtown Norfolk. So stay close to the forecast to see the timing of those showers.
Okay, so definitely we're going to see some warmer temperatures as we go through the week. I feel like it's a little bit warmer this time than right now than compared to last week, because
for sure.
I had some time off last week and I woke up one morning to snow.
Yes.
Very light dusting, but it was kind of a nice change because usually when it snows, like I always have to be here and I just happen to have the day off. So it was nice to enjoy the snow from inside for once instead of having to go to work.
Yeah, I was definitely on my way to work seeing the snowfall, but definitely much warmer than last week.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Taylor,
of course,
for joining us. All right. I think next we can go to this morning, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is the Secretary of Health for the United States. He spoke at a food allergy forum. So we recorded on that, and I think we're going to play that out now about some of the things that he had to say. They touched on a few different topics, but it is the food allergy forum that they are having in Washington, D.C. So let's take a listen. All right, so our video for that froze. We're going to bring it back in, though. It's just going to take a second. It's a glitch that happens from time to time. So while Naya is getting that ready, he did talk about a few different things during that forum. And Naya, I can bring that in if you would like me to. Okay. Just give me 1 second. All right, so we have that queued back up, and I will play that for you guys now.
Why has food allergy remained a low public health priority, even as it now impacts nearly 10% of the population?
I mean, that is, it's an interesting question. I think the answer to that question is that the public health agencies have been focused on infectious disease rather than chronic disease. And a lot of the chronic disease, particularly those that have gone epidemic since 1990, when we saw this huge explosion in chronic disease, have been at least comparatively underfunded or disproportionately underfunded by the public health community. I mean, to me, the interesting question is, why aren't we trying to figure out what's causing it? Because, you know, when I was a kid, I never met anybody with a peanut allergy. I had 11 siblings and around 70 first cousins, and I didn't know anybody in my school. I went to a bunch of different schools, to camps. I just didn't know. I never heard anybody with a peanut allergy. And Heather Fraser, in her book on the peanut allergy, says that the epidemic began in 1990. And prior to that, if you look through the scientific literature, it's really difficult to find anybody even mentioning or studying it. People just weren't studying it because it was not an issue. And so the year 1990 is interesting also to me because when Congress asked EPA to tell Congress what year did the autism epidemic begin. The EPA scientists came back and said it's a red line 1989. And prior to 1989, it was, in the 1970s, we did the biggest studies on autism, actually the biggest epidemiological study in history. And it found an incident rate of 0.7 per 10,000, so less than 1 in 10,000. And then by, the mid-90s, 1990s, it was going up to, 1 in 600, et cetera. And then, now it's 1 in every 31 kids. So the question is, why aren't we asking, and why aren't the public health agencies asking this question, what's causing it? This is an epidemic, and epidemic genes don't cause epidemics. They may provide a vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. And so why aren't we trying to identify the toxins that are making our kids sick? And, we saw these brilliant scientists up here, and I've been watching this since I became involved. I became involved, as you pointed out, because I had a son who was severely anaphylactic to not only peanuts, but all tree nuts and a lot of other stuff. He made, I think, 22 emergency room visits by the time he was 2 years old. And so this really had focused my attention. He came close to dying so many times. And as you know, the whole world becomes hazardous. You send your child to a birthday party, and maybe the cake had, peanut oil, or somebody cooked in the same pan something with peanuts in it 2 days before. And so everything is a trap, and everything is a potential killer of your child. I really focused my mind on it, but and I was focused on, okay, what are we going to do to treat it and to prevent him from getting sick? And I also, my mind immediately went to the place of, why is this happening? 5 of my 7 kids have allergies. What happened? Something happened. And it appears to have happened somewhat time around 1989, 1990. So you have to look at an environmental toxin that became ubiquitous during that year across all the different demographics, from Cubans in Key Biscayne, Miami, to Inuit in Alaska. Everybody started getting these allergies at that time. And why have there been no studies on that? Why are not people looking at that? Why isn't the entire scientific community focused on saying it's a very easy studies to do? You make a list of all the potential culprits that fit those criteria, and then you begin eliminating them. But those studies have never been done. We are going to do them now, and we will identify what is causing these allergies. The allergies, as I said, they've exploded. CDC, they were so rare that CDC did not even start counting them until 1997. It's just an obvious question. And we have an institute. I wish I was supposed to watch Jay speak. This program was running a little late, and I have a really tight schedule today. But in his agency, there's a sub-agency that was run by Anthony Fauci called the National Institute for Allergic and Infectious Diseases. It's supposed to study allergic diseases. And my question is, why didn't they immediately look on this and say, why are there suddenly all these kids with these allergies?
Food allergy has been proliferating, and it's very much a public health crisis that has flown under the radar. So I'm so excited that together we can really shine a spotlight on what needs to be done to change the course of this disease. You've said that thanks to President Trump's commitment to make America healthy again, your leadership at HHS has delivered more public health wins than any previous administration. Can you walk through some of these successes, especially as they relate to food?
Specifically with food. I guess one of the most important things is the GRAS standards. GRAS standards, the acronym GRAS means generally recognized as safe. And when the FDA began regulating food in the 1940s, they were regulating contaminants in food, since Upton Sinclair did his book, The Jungle, in the 1920s, and FDA was started as a result of that. they began regulating ingredients of food in the 1940s, but they said, well, we don't want to regulate ingredients that have been around forever, like wheat and flour and yeast and sugars. So we don't want people have to do new sets of studies on those kind of foods because they're proven. They're generally recognized as safe. So they developed that category. And if it is an ingredient that's been around for a long time, we're not going to force you to do the studies. That category, as the agency became captured by the food industry, that category was hijacked by the food industry so that and every new ingredient that was developed by any food company was automatically generally recognized as safe. And the burden of proving, the burden fell on the consumer and the government to prove harm if you didn't want the ingredient in the food. And the government doesn't have the money to do those tests. And so it just opened this loophole that now we have 10,000 ingredients in our food that are illegal in Europe. And Europeans have 400 ingredients. We have over 10,000. And we need to now, so we're doing this, closing that loophole, which we have to do with regulations. So that takes about 6 months, but we've already started that process. And then we're going to go back and do kind of triage where we have the power to force the companies that are making existing ingredients to go back and prove that they're safe. And we're going to we have a high priority list of priority ingredients that are the most common ingredients we're going to make them test first, but we're going to go now back through the entire list and make them to start testing it and telling us whether they're really safe or not. We're doing the SNAP waivers. 12 states have already gotten SNAP waivers, which we're encouraging. There are 6 states in line for them right now. These are food stamp waivers. About 10% of our food stamp expenditures go for soda drinks, and about 8% go for candies and sweets. And so we're giving the poorest Americans diabetes from when they're little. And we are paying for the diabetes through Medicaid, so it makes no sense. And so the SNAP waivers allow the states to step in and say, in this state, we're not going to pay for soda drinks, we're not going to pay for food. Some of them are doing ultra-processed food and other things under SNAP. So we're getting rid of the food dyes, all of the petroleum-based food dyes. We're doing that very quickly. We have this Operation Stork Speed to clean up baby formula. We're ending the war on saturated fats in this country, so we're going to publish dietary guidelines that are going to stress the importance of protein and saturated fats. And those will come out, I think, next month. And I think that will really revolutionize the food system in the country and the food culture in this country, because it will be implemented almost immediately in the military and in federal institutions, and then next year, we're going to be very aggressive about getting good food into the schools, the elementary schools, the public schools of this country. Those are some of the things that we're doing. We have a list of 100, but time is limited.
Well, you're moving at breakneck speed, so we're all appreciative of it. But you mentioned the military. 78% of our children are ineligible to serve because of chronic disease, and food allergy itself is an automatic disqualification from service. So food allergy touches on so many aspects of our society. When you spoke at the National Governors Association over the summer, you challenged Governor Polis on the root causes of peanut allergy specifically. Can you tell us a little bit about what you said in that exchange?
Well, Governor Polis had advanced hypothesis about one of the causes of food allergies, a very popular hypothesis. In fact, it's one that Marty McCary talks about a lot, which is that, and maybe the peanut allergies are associated with the lack of peanut exposures to children. And I guess in the 80s and 90s that parents were told not to expose their children to peanuts, and that it was the lack of exposure, that early exposure, that maybe is triggering peanut allergies. And people talk about Israel, where apparently there are very few peanut allergies and where there's early exposure to peanuts. To me, that is not a convincing hypothesis because, number one, in my own personal experience was my house was so filled with peanut butter. And I was eating peanut butter 2 meals a day. And my wife, when she was pregnant, was eating peanut butter. And the kids were given peanut butter from as soon as they could chew food. And yet we still had peanut allergies in our house. And that's kind of anecdotal. But more importantly, peanuts really were not eaten by anybody until George Washington Carver came along. And really, they didn't, there was no mass consumption of peanuts until after peanut butter was invented. That was in the 1920s, but really during World War I and World War II, it became a source of protein when there was, when there were restrictions on other sources of protein that people could get a hold of. And so suddenly you had a whole population that was eating peanuts, and yet there were no peanut allergies. It doesn't make any sense to me that a peanut allergy is just is from a deprivation of peanuts. There's many countries in the world that only started eating peanuts recently, and you didn't see huge waves of peanut allergy. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, one of the things that I said to Governor Polis is that we need to look at aluminum adjuvants in vaccines, which fit the timeline perfectly. The increase of aluminum is in lockstep, which began in 1989, which is in lockstep with the expansion of peanut allergies. We don't have the science to say this is an effect or not. Or maybe other things like, for example, pesticides that fit the same timeline. But those are the kind of things that we have to look at. The aluminum adjuvants are designed to increase the immune response and to hyperactivate your immune system. And they do that along the they cause Th2 inflammation, which creates IG2, which the gentleman up here were talking about mediated pathway. So when you give, there are many, many studies that show when you give animals aluminum adjuvants, they do develop allergies to proteins that are in the vaccine when they're given that, or that they're exposed to in the ambient environment. And so that's something that we need to look at. And there's a couple of scientists, a guy called Anthony Mawson from the University of Mississippi and another scientist called Gowlings from Europe that have looked at allergies in vaccinated children versus unvaccinated children. And I think Mawson's study found that vaccinated children had 30 times the rate of allergic rhinitis as unvaccinated children. And the hypothesis is that when you get that aluminum vaccine, if there's a Timothy weed outbreak at that time, and maybe that might give you a lifetime allergy to Timothy weed if you're sensitized by the aluminum at that time. But again, we don't know. I mean, the problem is there haven't been any human cohort studies. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of animal studies. Why didn't CDC or or NIAID do those human studies? Because it's pretty easy to figure this out, and we will figure it out.
In general, it seems that food allergy is the perfect storm, right? It's multiple factors that have come to a peak and a crescendo in this generation. To your point, in terms of early introduction and exposure, the only thing I craved my entire pregnancy was peanuts. I ate cans and cans of peanuts, probably too many peanuts, more than any human being should eat. But nevertheless, we talk to hundreds and thousands of families every year in the work that we do, and all of them have done early introduction, and it works for some, it doesn't work for others. And for the kids who are already living with food allergies, and for the adults who are developing allergies later in life as well, half are now starting in adulthood, we need to look at all these factors that are contributing to the rise in the disease.
Yeah, there may be many factors, there may be only one. We don't know. Why don't we know? Because there's been basically malpractice in the government-funded scientific community. Why wasn't this a question that was being asked, that was being demanded as soon as this allergy started to appear? Why weren't we putting out, requests for proposals saying, tell us why this is starting? And instead it became a verboten subject. You weren't allowed to study it. And science warned each other against studying it. And so, we're going to study it now. We're going to break that omerta. We're going to end the taboo, and we're going to find out what's causing it.
It's a very exciting moment. Food allergy is in much needed research, certainly. What do you see as the single most decisive step that this administration can take to end the childhood chronic disease epidemic?
I would say if I had to guess about, the most important exposures, I would point my finger at ultra-processed food. And again, it's a criminal that we do not have a clear answer to that right now. But there is a lot of accumulating scientific data and scientific studies that and also just common sense that point to ultra-processed foods. There's all kinds of, our kids are swimming around in a toxic soup, microplastics, EMF radiation, and then, pesticides, and, all of these toxic exposures that are affecting them from birth. And so addressing, though, in a specific sense, President Trump has asked us to address those, to identify what the culprits are, and then to eliminate them. And then I think, in a broader sense, we need to realign. We need to make sure that we're getting gold standard science, and that the science is not responsive to prejudice or to bias or to official orthodoxies, that people are allowed to ask questions, and they're allowed to question everything, and that there's nothing that is off bounds. I think Jay Bhattacharya is working really successfully to redirect, to recalibrate the compass at NIH where people feel safe researching formerly taboo subjects. And that's what he said to me from day one, is we need to break the taboo so people can ask questions. And then, I think the sort of the last category is what we're doing at CMS, which is to realign the perverse incentives that incentivize everybody, the hospitals, the doctors, the scientists, the government, to keep people sick. We literally are incentivized to keep people sick. You can make more money by keeping the hospitals make more money, the doctors make more money, the insurance companies make more money. Everybody's making more money for keeping us sick. No matter how good-hearted you are as an individual, those incentives will affect societal behavior. And what we're trying to do is to realign those incentives so that you can do well by doing good, that people are going to be rewarded for making their patients better rather than for giving them a bunch of tests and then, making their money on the friction or giving them interventions that they don't need. That we're all, incentivized to make Americans healthier.
Absolutely. I mean, the economic impact of food allergy alone, every 3 minutes someone goes to the emergency room. 30% of food allergy moms are dropping out of the workforce, $30 billion on direct medical costs, and the list goes on and on. So I think if we start with food allergy, and really we talked earlier today in the program about gut microbiome health and thinking of food allergy as the canary in the coal mine for chronic disease that often presents in the first 2 years of life, earlier than many other childhood conditions such as autism, juvenile diabetes, asthma, et cetera. So we can figure out what's going on with food allergy, crack that nut, no pun intended. I think it will have lifelong gut health implications.
Yeah, and I think when we figure out the answer for food allergies, that there's a whole list of atopic diseases that exploded simultaneously in lockstep with food allergies. Eczema, or allergic dermatitis is called, what it used to be called, which again, I didn't know anybody with eczema when I was a kid, and now, you have a whole generation that has eczema. Anaphylaxis, atopic diseases. And I'll say one thing about, the residual food proteins in vaccine, because the science suggests that aluminum alone will not cause allergies, but there are but when it's combined with a protein, if it's a latex protein or a dairy protein or a peanut protein, that's when you get this heightened immune response. But in the 1990s, there were a lot of anaphylaxis cases suddenly exploding in Japan. And they traced it to gelatin in the live virus vaccines and the MMR vaccines and some of the other vaccines they had over there. And by 2000, they had removed it all, and the anaphylaxis dropped dramatically. And so, I think we do have human models where you can look at you can look at sort of broad allergic reactions that take place across an entire society that are linked to the vaccine schedule. And there's no question about the science. There's all kinds of studies done on the Japanese example. And so it's just another piece of evidence in the puzzle that, we are now going to put together at NIH and at the other agencies and figure out exactly what is causing this.
Well, we're so grateful for your leadership and for the beginning of putting the puzzle pieces together. So thank you so much, Secretary.
Thank you.
Right, so that was Robert F. Kennedy, the U.S. Health Secretary, speaking at a food allergy forum that happened around 10 this morning. We recorded it. He touched on quite a few things. So he talked about peanut allergies, vaccines, and just food allergies in general. So that was what he was talking about. And we are monitoring a few other things on our board. Before we get to any of the things over there, we did have a press conference from earlier this morning. It was Mexican actress and model Vanessa Guzman. She held a press conference in El Paso today. So Guzman is very well known for starring on Mexican soap operas. She was also Miss Mexico 1995. She held a press conference about 30 minutes ago. It wrapped about 30 minutes ago, talking about an incident that happened at her home on Friday. There were shots fired at her home. Police responded. So this press conference was just to address what exactly happened. So we can play that out now and take a listen.
Me da muchísimo gusto saludarlos a todos. Gracias por atender medios de comunicación en esta rueda de prensa. Y pues aquí presentando a la actriz Vanessa Guzmán, que pues en días anteriores había sucedido algo y la verdad para no especular estos hechos, pues qué mejor que presente ella en viva voz, ¿verdad? Lo que ha sucedido. Hola Vanessa, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, buenos días. Bien, gracias. Bueno, primeramente quiero agradecerles el que se tomen el tiempo de venir y de estar aquí. Más que nada.
Okay, so as you could hear, that was in Spanish. So we're going to pivot now. We are going to go to something else. Let's go to, on the board, we're monitoring a few different things. So former Secretary of State John Kerry, he is currently taking part in he's discussing global and U.S. climate policy right now. So former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, he also ran for president. So let's take a listen to that.
With this position of United States, which is number 2 global emitter, and Russia, which is number 4 global emitter, do you believe that it will not undermine the global sustainable policy and still have a chance to achieve zero emission by 2050?
I'm not sure I understand the Russia part of that question, but maybe it isn't there. I think that I think first of all, I mean, Russia is way behind everybody else and has barely taken part, unfortunately, in the efforts to create alternative renewable energy sources and to move away from gas and so forth. And obviously, what's happening with the war in Ukraine is a environmental disaster of huge proportions. So I think I would welcome Russia, trying to come to the table on several of these issues. I spent a lot of time with President Putin and more than anybody else in the Obama administration, long meetings, and we were obviously very focused on Syria and ISIS and other things. But Russia cooperated with us in getting chemical weapons out of Syria in the middle of a war. And Russia played a very big role in doing that cooperation. So I'm somebody who believes good diplomacy can result in conversations even when things are tough. And I would love to see us engage in more robust efforts with Russia on a broader array of issues, including the Southern Ocean, where we want to try to create a massive addition to the largest marine protected area in the world, the Ross Sea, and Russia is unfortunately opposing it. So I would hope you would do anything you can to open up the door for real dialogue here in the way that we had it very recently and very productively. We stopped Ebola in its tracks in West Africa. Russia helped, China helped. So I am a deep believer in the power and possibility of good diplomacy to change the way you currently see things. And so I don't look at it and say, well, the way it is today is the way it has to be and it's going to be. That's not true. And if you engage where you don't think there's necessarily a possibility, but you have a good idea of how you can build trust and how you can do things that are constructive for both or multiple countries, you can make things happen. And I hope you would be part of efforts in Russia to get people to remember that.
Thank you. Let's go to a question here. There's a lady there.
Hi, thank you so much for this conversation. My name is Swati and I work with UNICEF. So my question is very health and climate centric. The two don't always align. So I wanted to get your thoughts more on what good transition plans actually look like. We know right now that about 500,000 newborns die every year, and it's attributable to household pollution. That's biomass fuels being burned in low and middle income countries. And for them, the next feasible step in the energy ladder often is LPG. And so I feel like I don't really hear a lot of that conversation or nuance at COPs, where a lot of these countries desperately need to move away from biomass, from wood, from coal, but often maybe are being held to the standards of these Western countries that make up the top 20 of this innovation index,
Sure.
but don't have the same resources.
So let me be very, very blunt with you and with myself. I'm not a fan of talk fests. And from Paris through Dubai, we didn't just produce talk fests. We produced a roadmap. We produced an agreed upon agenda. And people aren't following it. I mean, if they're not following it, you have to find a way to pressure and bring people around. But we don't have any credibility in that field anymore. We're not in it. We're not even at the table. And we have no credibility with which to say to them, well, if you don't do this, we're going to try to push a countervailing, CBAM measure. Familiar with CBAM, with the, countervailing carbon-based surcharges on people. And Europe's thinking about deploying one now. China has a marketplace for carbon. California has a marketplace for carbon. The biggest and best thing we could do to win this battle, actually, is pass an agreed upon real price of carbon globally. The minute you do that, marketplace changes over. It's gone. We're going to win. I say that because I led the fight to do acid rain back in the 1980s when I was lieutenant governor and then when I was a senator. And we won the fight. You don't hear about acid rain. Why? Because it went away as a problem, because sulfur was priced, there was a trading mechanism, and it won the day. So if we could get something like that cooking, we'd have a chance of, again, winning the battle.
And back in the day, it was a Republican president who signed it into law. It was a market-based mechanism.
It was a market-based mechanism, which was designed, frankly, by the Heritage Foundation. And we kind of borrowed with them and worked with them. And I had Governor John Sununu of New Hampshire was my, Republican counterpart, and Dick Celeste from Ohio. And we put together this solution, which ultimately I helped get into the Clean Air Act when I was in the Senate. So things make a difference. You have to talk to each other to make those things happen. You have to go across borders, state lines, country lines, whatever. You got to have deployment, but you got to have real things that are happening now. And right now, what burns me up more than anything is people are not conscientiously making the kind of efforts. There are a few people who are, don't get me wrong, mostly European countries. And the Europeans are leading on the index that I just mentioned. So you have to keep pounding away. Folks, you know what? Winston Churchill once was asked something about America, whether they'd come around to do the war, fight the war, help and everything. And he said confidently, America will do the right thing after they've exhausted every other option.
We're working on the latter part right now. Let's go for a question here. This gentleman.
Tyler Godoff, Emerging Founder Advisory. So you mentioned you're now 55 years old. You've been on this journey for a while now. With hindsight, knowing what you know now, how would you have changed your strategy trying to achieve the goals that you've achieved and are trying to achieve on this front?
How would I have changed?
Yeah, knowing what you know now, what strategy shifts would you have personally made?
Well, I would have shifted some strategy and made sure that my campaign was adequately answering the lies that were thrown at us and won the presidency. That would be a good start.
Let's go to the back row here. I've ignored the back. Maybe we'll go to the lady over there in the red.
Thank you very much. My name is Lily Pike. I'm a reporter with Bloomberg News. I cover climate change in China, and thank you for citing my colleague's work earlier. My question is going back to what you said about China filling the vacuum right now. I'm curious, is China currently meeting your definition of climate leadership on the global stage? And if not, why not?
No, they're not. And I don't think they will in the near term very easily. For the same reasons that I think Belt and Road has been a very troubled program. I think that I'm trying to find the right structure here. China is different. It's just different culturally, economically, and otherwise. They make a decision, everybody gets on board. They can make it in 2 days. They can make it in 1 day if they want to, and they move. We can't do that. We don't do that. And I'm not advocating that we should do that because the methodologies that they're doing that are not something that Americans want to live with, and I would never even think of that. It'd be counter to America. But they get things done. 8 years ago, they were nowhere near being able to produce the kind of massive levels of solar panels that they are today. And mind you, also, those solar panels capacity came from Germany and the United States. It was literally stolen from us in the context of trade, and nobody did anything about it at the WTO, and the rest is history. So we lose out. Now, we can't sit around and crying about it and whining. We got to get to work. And the way we get to work is focus on the supply chains that are going to make the greatest difference to us right now, to be able to lead, and frankly, to sit down with China. Now, I know that's heresy in a lot of places. Everybody says, oh, no, you know. I mean, Congress people are tripping over each other to see who can be more, you know, bellicose in talking about China. But I just don't agree with that as an approach. And I think everything I've done with China has proven otherwise. That is not the only way to get things done. And we might find that there's a very different course of possibilities if we were to work in a sincere way of dealing with other things. Now, that's, mind you, there are a bunch of things that are problematic in terms of how China behaves. I mean, you've got challenges galore, ranging from access to the marketplace, theft of intellectual property.
All right, we're cutting out of that because we're monitoring our board of live events, and it looks like in Indiana, you may remember earlier this month in Boone County, a cleaning worker was shot through a door when she arrived to the wrong home. This happened in Indiana, Boone County. She was shot through the door when she arrived to the wrong home in Whitestown. So the Boone County prosecutor right now is giving an update on this case. So let's take a listen.
Has been thorough and professional. Their continued cooperation and teamwork with the Boone County Prosecutor's Office has been invaluable as we move forward in this case. As prosecutors, we have a solemn responsibility. We cannot allow emotion to guide our decisions. Our duty is to examine the facts, apply the law fairly and equally, and ensure that justice is served without bias or influence. That is the only way the law can truly be just. Cases of this nature require a meticulous review of every detail and every piece of evidence. After a comprehensive examination, the Boone County Prosecutor's Office has filed one count, that count being voluntary manslaughter, which is to knowingly kill while acting under sudden heat as a level 2 felony. This has been charged against Kurt Anderson of Whitestown, Indiana. At the conclusion of this press conference, copies of the charging information and the probable cause affidavit will be made available to you once it is unsealed by the court. It is vitally important for the citizens of Boone County to understand that our decision today in no way should be interpreted as a challenge to Indiana stand your ground law or a person's right to self-defense. We respect those laws, believe in those laws, and will uphold those laws. Based upon the particular evidence and circumstances of this case, we have determined that Kurt Anderson's actions do not fall within the legal protections provided by the Indiana Stand Your Ground law. This case is not about undermining the law, it's about applying the law to the facts of this case, and that is what we intend to prove at trial. Kurt Anderson remains presumed innocent, and until the state proves his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. This presumption of innocence is a cornerstone of our justice system and a principle that lies at the heart of a fair and just legal system. Finally, I need to address one critical point. During the pendency of this investigation, social media has circulated false and misleading information. This must stop immediately. It does not help the process. It does not help this case. It undermines the integrity of the judicial process. It spreads confusion, and it harms both the victim's family and the accused's right to a fair trial. One particular harmful claim was that this crime was committed by a police officer. That is categorically and absolutely false. Kurt Anderson has no affiliation with any local police department. To our knowledge, he has never been a police officer, and there is no evidence of any connection to a law enforcement agency or personnel in Boone County. By spreading these falsehoods, you are undermining everything we work for every single day to ensure and defend in our system. Stop sharing rumors. Stop posting misleading narratives. rely on official sources for accurate information. Justice cannot exist without the truth. At this time, I am prepared to take questions as both one thing I want to make sure everyone understands. As both an attorney and as a prosecutor, I am bound by the Indiana rules of professional conduct. In particular, Rule 3.6 and 3.8. 3.6 applies to all attorneys, and 3.8 applies to prosecutors in particular. These rules impose obligations to respect these rules and protect the integrity of this case moving forward. I will not discuss the facts, case strategy, or anything speculative in nature. I'm happy to answer questions about the process going forward and to related matters. And so with that, I want to remind you, when this is over, I will have copies of this written statement for the press, I'll have copies of the probable cause affidavit, and I'll have copies of the charging information. With that, I can answer your questions, but remember, very limited in scope about what I'm allowed to talk about.
When's the suspect due in court?
He's currently at the Boone County Jail. He's been booked in. The defendant, the court will then set the initial hearing date. At the latest, it'll be Friday. He's currently being held on no bond hold. At his initial hearing, the judge will set a bond pursuant to local rules.
It's been about 12 days since the incident happened. Take us through your process, and you said it was a careful examination. What you had to look at, go through to come to the decision.
Well, first, it was communication with Whitestown Police Department through the investigation. They would ask questions, we would ask questions, but we wanted them to take a thorough examination for them to complete it. They got most everything completed by the end of business on Friday, this past Friday. So with that, or a week ago Friday, I should say. So with that, we then started our review this past Monday. And we'll look at everything we had. So some of the things we have tape statements by witnesses. We have crime scene diagrams, crime scene videos, things of that nature is what we're looking at to make the determination. And then as a prosecutor, you look at the law and then you look at case law to support your conclusions.
What is the longest that Mr. Anderson could potentially be incarcerated for if he's convicted of what he's being charged with?
Well, it's a level 2 felony, and as prosecutors, we can't really talk about potential penalties. So I'll tell you it's a level 2 felony under Indiana law.
Can you address at all what specifics in this case you say made it so it's a violation of law?
So what I'll say is first read the probable cause affidavit. Look at those facts, and what we're saying is that the standard ground law does not apply in this case, as Mr. Anderson did not have proper information which would allow him to make the determination that he was reasonable in his actions.
Does the family have a victim's advocate within your office, and if not, is there any way that you can get them one as well as a translator?
Yes, so we have met with the victim personally. I personally met with him 2 hours. We have an attorney on staff that speaks Spanish, and they were present in the room. We will have a victim advocate for them, but when we met with them, that was not part of the process. But they have a victim advocate. They'll be meeting with the victim advocate, and our attorney who speaks Spanish will be meeting with them. So we do that in every case.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did you utilize a grand jury in advance of the affidavit for probable cause?
No.
Speak to the unusual circumstances of this case. How rare is this type of case in general? Because I know it's gotten a lot of attention even across the country.
Yeah, just talking in general. If you want, without talking about the specifics in this case, with the Indiana Standard Ground Law, it is not something that's presented normally in Boone County. I can't speak for other counties, but in Boone County, this type of a case is very rare.
Really, you're going to answer any of the questions that we want to ask you, so.
I can't. Look, guys, I'd love to answer your questions, but I have a duty as a prosecutor that I cannot talk about facts that would get in front of the trier of fact, that would have a negative impact on accused right to a fair trial. You know, as a prosecutors, we have those duties, and we have to follow those. And I train on this topic, and I would be going against every single training I've ever done. If you talk about specific facts and go into those details, there are public records in which you'll have. I'm going to confirm that judges sign the motion to unseal, and I'll get you all that information. You can read it for yourselves.
Are you able to send that information over to us, or do we need to?
I have copies here, and then also anyone that's on that email list will be getting the same thing that's in here. So, because there are people that couldn't obviously make it today.
Awesome, thank you.
Did Mr. Anderson say anything when he learned about the charge?
I have Mr. Anderson is represented by counsel. I am not allowed to talk to Mr. Anderson now that he's represented by counsel. So.
Last question, once you looked at everything, was it very clear right away, okay, this is the charge? Was it an easy decision for you? How can you characterize that decision?
It was thorough. It was thoughtful. Once we had all the information in front of us, once we looked at the law, once we looked at the case law, it became clear what the appropriate way to proceed with this case was.
Would you say this is one of the hardest cases you've had to come to a decision on, or?
No, and well, first, I want to thank everybody in the Boone County community, family, friends. I've had an outpouring of people, whether it's email, text, phone call, or someone just stopped me on the street saying, we're praying for you because we know you have a difficult decision to make. But honestly, it wasn't. I hate to sound cavalier about this, but it wasn't a hard decision. The hardest case in my life today is still death of Deputy Pickett. That case has been the hardest one because just everything that went into it.
You said that the stand your ground law doesn't apply here. Where would that apply? Could you explain to people what that law actually covers?
Well, I'm going to read the law, so I want to make sure everyone hears it, okay? So, in this scenario, when you have a dwelling, okay, we're only talking about when it applies to a dwelling. I'm not applying this to other scenarios, right? So, under Indiana law, a person is justified in using reasonable force, which may include, including deadly force, against any other person, and does not have a duty to retreat if the person reasonably believes that the force is necessary to prevent or terminate the other person's unlawful entry of or attack on the person's dwelling, curtilage, or occupied motor vehicle. That's this that would apply to scenarios similar to this.
How did you determine that this didn't fall under that then?
Well, it is our belief, and it's our contention that the person did not have a reasonable belief that that type of force was necessary, given all the facts that he had at that time.
Mr. Anderson, the lawyer, met pretty quickly. Would you say that he was helpful in the investigation, or did they shut down immediately?
It's not. I really can't say yes or no to that question. It's not uncommon for people when they know that they are possibly being investigated for them to hire attorneys immediately. Through my career, it's very common for that to happen. So yeah. So no, they've been cooperative. We've had communications with them since Mr. Relford entered. Since Mr. Relford made known that he's representing Mr. Anderson, we've been communicating with them, and I would deem the communication appropriate. Thank you, guys. Just give me a second. I'll put I've got it's a stack of papers, paper clipped together. I think I have about 30 of them, so it's about 25 pages total. So I'll put those over here for you, okay?
Send it out digitally.
I'm going to, yeah. As soon as I get done here, I'm going to go back to my office. I have it prepared to go out, and then I'll send it out to the email group.
So you were just listening to prosecutors in Boone County, Indiana. They were giving an update on a case from November 5th. So on November 5th, a 32-year-old woman from Indianapolis was part of a cleaning crew that arrived at the wrong home. She had the wrong address. The homeowner shot her through the door. And so this press conference that you were just listening to, they gave an update on where that case stands. So Boone County prosecutors, they filed a charge against the homeowner, again, a cleaning worker who arrived at the wrong home. So that homeowner, Kurt Anderson of Whitestown, Indiana, he's been charged with voluntary manslaughter in this case. So again, that shooting happened on November 5th at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that was just prosecutors in Boone County giving an update on where that case stands. Again, that homeowner charged with voluntary manslaughter. So prosecutors in that press conference, they were walking through why they decided to charge the homeowner. They touched on what is considered reasonable force if you believe someone is trying to break into your home. And so the investigation resulted in that homeowner who is accused of firing the gun, being charged with voluntary manslaughter. So now that has wrapped up, we're going to turn to a big story from over the weekend in North Carolina. Federal agents were on the ground in Charlotte, North Carolina. You can see here there was a lot of pushback to this. So federal immigration officers were in Charlotte. So you could lots of protesters took to the street to protest their arrival. Governor Josh Stein, he spoke a little bit about what unfolded over the weekend. There were a few detainments, and he did touch on some of the reaction to that coming in over the weekend.
It's Josh Stein. I wanted to. All
right, so that video is freezing. We can get that fixed in just a second if you just give us one moment. I'm going to have Naya pull that up. Okay, so let's try and take a listen now to what Governor Josh Stein this morning, he released a video statement just talking about reaction to the detainments that happened this weekend, the protesters that were out. So we'll take a listen now.
It's Josh Stein. I wanted to provide an update as Customs and Border Patrol agents have been in Charlotte over the weekend. My team and I have been in regular contact with state and local law enforcement to ensure that they have the resources that they need to keep you safe. Public safety is our top priority, and our well-trained local officers know their communities and are here for the long haul. On Friday, before Customs and Border Protection came to Charlotte, I encouraged North Carolinians to follow the law, remain peaceful, and bear witness to what you're seeing. Thank you, Charlotte, for answering that call. To the CBP, if you know that we have violent criminals in Charlotte who are undocumented, we want them out too. Everyone wants to be safe in their communities. But the actions of too many federal agents are doing the exact opposite in Charlotte. We've seen masked, heavily armed agents in paramilitary garb driving unmarked cars, targeting American citizens based on their skin color, racially profiling and picking up random people in parking lots and off of our sidewalks, going after landscapers simply decorating a Christmas tree in someone's front yard, and entering churches and stores to grab people. This is not making us safer. It's stoking fear and dividing our community. I want to say a word about immigration. We are a nation of immigrants, and our state and this country is stronger because of our immigrant communities. Unfortunately, our immigration system is broken. But rather than fix it, the federal government continues to play politics with it. It is long past time for Congress to act. We need strong borders. We must hold accountable and deport anyone who has committed a serious crime. And we must create a path to legal status for those who've been here a long time, paid their taxes, and followed the law, especially our dreamers who came to this country as very young children. North Carolina, I know this is a stressful moment, but please stay peaceful. And if you see something wrong, record it and report it to local law enforcement. That's what we can do for our neighbors to keep each other safe. That's the North Carolina way. Thank you.
Okay, once again, that was North Carolina Governor Josh Stein giving an update on what happened in Charlotte over the weekend. So federal agents, so Customs and Border Protection, were sent to Charlotte over the weekend to conduct immigration. As far as we know, there were Border Patrol officials say that dozens were arrested in North Carolina during an immigration enforcement. So Governor Stein has been pushing back against, he says he did not want federal agents on the ground there necessarily, and Democrats that are also in the House, sorry, not the House, North Carolina leaders, they were also talking on Friday ahead of the arrival of those agents. They also spoke about their arrival and how there were a lot of questions that they needed answered ahead of the arrival. So this press conference that we're about to listen to happened on Friday.
Here is called in the National Guard. No one here is called in Border Patrol. We know how to take care of our city. We know how to protect our city, and we simply do not need them here. So next up, we will hear from Representative Jordan Lopez.
Well, thank you, everybody. Good morning. In the interest of brevity, I will try to keep my remarks short. First, thank you to every one of you for being here this morning. Thank you to my colleagues across our local government for being here this morning. For my constituents, for all of our constituents, I just want to say that we see you, we are standing with you, we are here for you. Over the past several days, I've had conversations with community members, with leaders, with neighbors, and each time we talk about this expected enforcement operation from the federal government, and I'm speaking to people across all races, across all backgrounds, across legal statuses, and the common denominator is fear and concern. We've seen what has taken place in other cities across this country when the federal government gets involved. We have seen the undisciplined agents pointing weapons at unarmed civilians, the indiscriminate rounding up of civilians who are sleeping in their homes in the middle of their night in Chicago. We have seen the worst of law enforcement, and as a lawmaker myself, I know laws must be enforced, but the how matters. And whenever you decide that creating the perception of peace through fear tactics, through militarized agents walking down the street, that doesn't feel like a safe or a welcoming community to me. That feels like a prison, and that is not what the people of House District 112 are asking for. That is not what the people of the city of Charlotte are asking for, or the people across Mecklenburg County. We do not want that here. So I stand with our local law enforcement leaders, our executive leaders like Mayor Lyles, who have asked for greater communication from the federal government, because the interest of all of us, I believe, is the safety of our constituents, is the safety of our city, and we want to make sure that everybody knows we are standing with them, and we also want safe cities, but we want to make sure we do it in the right way. So thank each and every one of you all for being here again, and I believe I will be passing this off next to back to Representative Dew. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. We have so many people here to speak. I'm actually going to go to one of our community members who actually came up from Charleston without having to go through Border Patrol, who is representing SEIU.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. It's a good morning to be here on this chilly morning, but it's an exciting morning to be here. Travel from Charleston. My name is Nisi Brown. I am the union representative for the North Carolina area. I represent the workers here in North Carolina, and I came to stand in solidarity with our politicians, our community leaders, our working families, our children, the entire Charlotte community. I actually want to say that I'm a union leader that believe in making it clear that our priority is to protect our workers, no matter who they are, no matter the color of their skin. It doesn't matter where they came from. Our priority is to protect our workers. Departing U.S. Custom and Border Control here in Charlotte does not make sense. I'm with you, sister. In our city is an attack on our community, our workers, and our First Amendment. The deployment is a pattern from the administration that target Democratic-led city, especially those led by black leaders who choose to welcome all of God's children. I don't know about you, but Charlotte is a Bible city, and we believe that we love everybody. All of us are God's children. So no workers should feel fair being in the city of Charlotte, being detained, assaulted, taken by federal agents simply for showing up for work. Amen. We don't need immigration and custom enforcement coming into Charlotte, disrupting our city, creating fear in our city and workplace, trying to divide our community and to make Charlotte a less safe place. What Charlotte needs, we need work, we need affordable housing, affordable health care, wages that we can live off, being able to go to the grocery store and not spend our entire check. That's what we need in Charlotte. Our community thrives on standing and sharing our values of freedom, opportunity, and dignity for everyone. But one thing I read, because I'm a Bible girl, I read in Psalms 29:2, and it says that whenever there is a good leader, the people rejoice. But whenever there's a wicked leader, the people groan. And I don't know about you, but we're at that point that we're groaning now because who is in leadership? There has to be something done. So immigrant workers enrich our community, help drive our nation forward. They support our family, contribute to everyday work in the city, and deserve to be safe in their workplace and their home. Let me be clear. We will not be divided by immigration status, by fear. We're going to stand together with our neighbors, with our sisters, and our brothers, because I do believe that when we fight together, when we stand together, we will win this fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Senator Caleb Tedros.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Caleb Tedros. I represent some of you all in the state Senate. We're in my district right now. The past week have shown us, what a way to govern, where we have had community members, elected officials, even reporters on these fact-finding missions just to find out whether a federal force is coming into the city of Charlotte. The number one word you're all going to hear in the next few months when it's time to campaign is going to be transparency. What part of this governing has been transparent? What part of this entire process has been fully shown so that community members know what's going on? And I understand what these community members are going through. Myself, I'm from an immigrant family. My family is originally from East Africa. So outside of dealing with the constant plight in this country of an affordability crisis, outside of the anxiety of not having somewhere where you can afford to live, you now have to have an anxiety about a federal force coming into Charlotte and you not knowing what they're going to do, you not knowing what's going to take place. The only thing you have to go off of is Twitter announcements and rumors about what's going to happen in Charlotte. That is not an effective way to govern. It doesn't take a president to know that. Excuse me. And we've seen that here even at the local level. A North Carolina State Senate and House of Representatives where we still don't have a budget. The only state in the United States of America with no budget. And of course, to take attention away from this, you have authoritarian, you have sort of these political fiascos to take attention away from that. The fact that we don't have a budget, the fact that people's health care is doubling and tripling. So what do? You have fiascos like this. You have political theater, and you have constant and new anxiety you're introducing to the public. Folks in Charlotte are not going to be made safe by this. What if you care about actual safety, you care about fully funding our police officers, you care about additional money spent on mental health resources, you care about additional resources for our public safety programs. That's how you push back against public safety. That's how you help folks. You pass a budget, you help folks with health care. You don't rely on sort of fear tactics and lack of information to hit folks at the local level. And that's what you see folks are fighting against. It's the lack of transparency, the lack of everything you all are going to hear on the campaign trail in the next few months when these people come out and talk about the great job or their lack of. And so I want to thank you all. I want to thank the speakers here and community members. It takes a lot of courage to come out here and speak your truth. And that's something that the city of Charlotte and the state of North Carolina is going to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Cameron Pruitt, who is with us from the Freedom Center for Social Justice.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. You know, we are 14 days into the month of November, 2 weeks from Thanksgiving, and folks still don't have their SNAP benefits. We are sitting in a city where people are planning and trying to gather together to put a turkey on the table, to bring their family members, asking them to come home and travel and be with them. But now this weekend, we have to worry if families are going to be separated and torn apart. And so as a Christian, I pray that everyone looks into their hearts and asks, what would you do if this was your family? What steps would you take? What would you donate? What would you volunteer? How loud would you yell in the streets? And so I'm asking you to do that, to stand with the Carolina Migrant Network, to shop at immigrant-owned businesses. Charlotte East has a full list. And to peacefully and prayerfully and with moral clarity take action in this moment. You have heard from speakers, this will not make our people safe. This is not a targeted action. We have seen Border Patrol use helicopters on civilian buildings and not apologize. This is not about legal status. This is about the color of someone's skin, about where they come from, and about causing fear and division. So I ask everyone, take action, stand together, take action, stand together, pray, and we will get through this. Thank you.
Next, we will have Jonelle Coswell, who was a part of the chair for the International Cabinet, also worked with International House, and is also an immigrant herself.
Thank you, Representative Dew. I don't know, maybe this isn't working. Hello, everybody, and good morning. This is a very, very dire time that we're gathering here today. I'm a proud immigrant, I'm a proud Jamaican American, and I have been a part of this community for over a decade. The immigrant community in Charlotte is vibrant, productive, and contributes over $1 billion of spending revenue each year to this community. Immigrants not only bring their culture and diversity, but we help to make this community prosperous and a healthy economic ecosystem. I have recently been grieving the loss of a very, very dear friend. And I can only imagine that this kind of grief, this kind of sorrow is only, I can't even describe what families must go through when they come home to find family members gone, missing. It is one thing if you are going after criminals. It is one thing if you're going after people who have broken the law. To take someone with no due process, this is not democratic, this is not American, and this is not Charlotte, and this is not this country. Now, our community is strong, and it is made stronger by the presence of immigrants and the international community. Amen. We need to stand together, and we need to protect our community members, because they do not come here to rob, do not come here to steal. They come here for a better life and to make this community better by working hard and participating and volunteering, just like myself. We need to stand together, and we need to protect our community members, and we have to say no. This cannot happen, and we need to defend our democracy and make sure that there is due process. Thank you so much.
Hello, hello, hello. All right, well, we won't worry about it. I think we're all loud. All right, so next we have Council Member-elect J.D. Lasuaro Arias. And I probably butchered it, I'm very sorry.
Good morning. My colleagues will have to forgive me because I can talk a lot. And I have to say things in English and in Spanish. because this is personal.
Amen.
I know what fear feels like. I know what it feels like to have it in your bones. The kind that makes you hold your breath when somebody knocks the door, and the kind that parents feel when they just hope to come back home to their children at night. That fear is not distant to me. It's a part of who I am. I grew up undocumented in Charlotte, in the neighborhoods that so many immigrant families call home. And today I stand before you as not only the first Latino, but the first formerly undocumented member of the City Council. Yesterday, the Sheriff's Office confirmed that CBP will be in our city. However, no transparency, no accountability, no explanation, not to my colleagues behind me, not to the public, not to the families who deserve to know what's happening in their own city. Let me say this clearly. This is not about public safety. It is not about finding criminals. It is about fear, it is about quotas, and it's about control. When federal agents enter our communities without warning, without cause, and without humanity, they are not keeping us safe. They are terrorizing our neighborhoods, and we do not welcome our communities being terrorized and attacked. Our Queen City will not become a staging ground for fear.
Amen.
We will not confuse cruelty with safety, and we will not allow the politics of intimidation to define who belongs here. We saw this before in Chicago, where federal actions left families broken and trust shattered, and we will not allow Charlotte to follow that same path. CBP is not the same as ICE, but both agencies have operated without transparency, without oversight, and too often without humanity. Let's be clear. The CMPD is not participating, has not been asked to assist, and has no authority to intervene. But that does not mean we are powerless. We must act, we must use every tool within our moral and civic power to protect our residents, and we must make it clear that no city property, no local resources, and no taxpayer dollars will ever be used to help carry out these operations that terrorize our people.
Amen.
Charlotte's immigrant story is a global one, from Colombia and Mexico, to the Congo and Ethiopia, to Vietnam and Nepal, to Ukraine and Albania. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us. When you criminalize migration, you criminalize humanity. We must lead with courage, we must move with urgency, and we must protect every person who calls this city home. We will not wait for permission to do what's right. We will not stay silent while fear spreads, and we will not let federal agencies decide who belongs in our city. And to our immigrant neighbors, you are not alone. You are seen, you are valued, and you belong here. Charlotte's strength has never come from fear. It has come from faith in one another, from the courage of those who built this city with their hands, and from the love that binds us together. We do not welcome terror. We do not consent to cruelty, and we will not let fear define who we are, not in Charlotte, not in our Queen City, not on our watch. Buenos días. Esto es personal. Yo sé lo que se siente.
Right, so you were just listening to a press conference that was held on Friday in Charlotte, North Carolina. You were listening to community leaders and city leaders who were, they did not want Border Patrol to come to the city. So that was on Friday. They were speaking out ahead of the arrival of those federal immigration officers. And so we do have an update from the Department of Homeland Security. So I'm just going to read this, what I have. The Department of Homeland Security said Border Patrol arrested more than 130 people during the first 2 days of immigration enforcement operations in Charlotte. They were calling this Operation Charlotte's Web. They said that the people that they detained, they are accused of having criminal records, including gang ties. So according to a spokesperson with the Department of Homeland Security, in a statement said, during the first 2 days of Operation Charlotte's Web, Border Patrol arrested more than 130 illegal aliens who have all broken the immigration laws of our country. Criminal records of those arrested include known gang membership, aggravated assault, possession of a dangerous weapon, felony larceny, simple assault, hit and run, possession of stolen goods, shoplifting, DUI, DWI, and illegal re-entry after prior deportation, which is a felony. The Department of Homeland Security went on to say, quote, "We will not stop enforcing the laws of our nation until every criminal..." Sorry, I lost my spot. Of our nation until every criminal illegal alien is arrested and removed from our country. So that was a statement from the Department of Homeland Security. Again, they are calling this operation in Charlotte, Charlotte's Web. It began Saturday morning with the first reported sighting of immigration officers happening that day. So this began Saturday, and what we were listening to, which you see on your screen, this press conference was happening on Friday. Lots of local leaders in Charlotte were talking about they were anticipating the arrival of the agents at the time, and they even said that they did not really know the extent of the operations that were going to be happening there in Charlotte over the weekend. Additionally, Eugene brought this to my attention earlier today when we were in the 10 o'clock to noon live stream. He said Homeland Security also posted a, this tweet, thank you, Naya, from over the weekend. They said that Homeland Security, they said a law enforcement officer was injured during the immigration enforcement operation. This video shows what happened. It was caught on camera. So the tweet says, this afternoon in Charlotte near University City, a U.S. citizen weaponized his vehicle, driving a large van at law enforcement while they were conducting an operation. He immediately fled the scene, starting a dangerous high-speed chase through a densely populated area. During the chase, he attempted to ram into law enforcement vehicles, posing a serious threat to public safety. As agents were boxing him in, the driver proceeded to ram law enforcement vehicles in an attempt to escape. When the driver was arrested, a firearm was found in the vehicle. One law enforcement officer was injured. Homeland Security says the perpetrator had prior arrests for resisting law enforcement, public disturbance, and intoxication of and disruptive conduct. So you can see there, that's the video that they posted. I believe it's that van that's now, you see it driving across your screen. Yes, so that is from the Homeland Security. So we've heard a little bit from both sides. Let's go back to that press conference that we were listening to a little bit more. We'll hear from some more people that spoke on Friday.
First Latina elected to the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners, and I am darn sure I will not be the last. Latinos and other immigrants are here to stay, and thank goodness for that. Contrary to the current narrative in D.C., we know that immigrants who come to the U.S. with or without authorization have lower rates of crime than native-born citizens, higher rates of entrepreneurship, and enrich our nation economically, socially, and culturally. But unfortunately, we are living in the strangest of times, a time when a felonious reality TV personality is occupying the White House. Unfortunately, we have seen this movie before, and now they want to film an episode of shock and awe show here in our city. We have seen the reports of masked men rappelling out of helicopters in the middle of the night to frighten and intimidate. We have seen the reports of men, women, and children who are traumatized by these un-American tactics, and we know that collateral damage is not only expected, it's encouraged. We know that these agents are not engaging in targeted actions meant to capture violent criminals. They are going for numbers, and it doesn't matter who gets in their way. They're being paid huge sign-on bonuses to do this work. It's a performance meant to destroy and shatter families. Well, let's not fall into the trap, Charlotte. Let's not give them what they want. We must always remain peaceful, and we must know and exercise our rights. We must prioritize safety and dignity over performance. Record their actions from a safe distance. Take notes if you're a witness to harsh treatment. The 5th and 14th Amendments mandate that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, a protection extended to every human being on American soil. Yes, you heard that right. The Constitution applies to all persons within the United States, whether their presence here is lawful, temporary, or permanent. It is the legal and moral responsibility of all authorities, and indeed all of us, to treat immigrants with dignity and justice. Whatever occurs in the coming days, we must meet the moment peacefully, reduce panic, and remember that due process will be back. There will come a time when this regime ends and justice and due process will become the order of the day again. Luckily, we have multiple trusted nonprofits who are mobilizing with assistance for those who may be impacted. Let us support by donating or volunteering with the Latin American Coalición, the Carolina Migrant Network, Comunidad Colectiva, Action NC, International House, Our Bridge for Kids, the Hispanic Federation, and others. Let us make sure to support and frequent our immigrant-owned small businesses like restaurants, tiendas, salons, and others. Let this episode motivate all of us to work harder to drive out those in power who are not serving the people, but instead are profiting off of this performance. If they can pay $30,000 bonuses to recruit agents for their shock and awe show, surely we can elect leaders who will find a way to recruit and pay teachers and child care workers to do the important, critical work of our nation. I look forward to a time when the immigration process is depoliticized and fair immigration reforms can be undertaken to create the kind of justice system we can all be proud of and that aligns with our true American values. Thank you.
Next, we will have the president of the NAACP, Charlotte Mecklenburg, Corinne Mack.
Good morning. I first want to start with reminding everyone within the sound of our voices that it was immigrants who built this country. Africans who were enslaved, who had no opportunity for freedom or even freedom of thought, were in fact immigrants. Now, we're talking about immigration as if it's something over there or over there. But the harm to every immigrant is harm to every one of us. In this country, we want to believe that the Constitution has protected us all, and in fact it has not.
Again, you were listening to a press conference that took place on Friday ahead of the arrival of federal immigration officers in Charlotte. So I touched on an update from the Department of Homeland Security. They're calling this Operation Charlotte's Web, of what they're doing in Charlotte. And they gave an update today. They say that they arrested more than 130 people who they say had criminal records, all had criminal records and had violated U.S. immigration law. So now we're going to we're looking at our board, we're monitoring some live events. So President Donald Trump is speaking from the Oval Office right now. He is, I believe he is talking about White House task force on the FIFA World Cup 2026. So we can go ahead and take a listen to that right now.
This goes to countries, everybody wants it. I guess it's going all over the world. Do you know who's getting it the next time around? Who's getting it? Has that been selected?
The next one will be Morocco, Spain, and Portugal.
That's good.
With 3 matches at the beginning in South America, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, and the one after will be Saudi Arabia in 2034.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Well, we have the king coming, Crown Prince is coming tomorrow. This will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to showcase the greatness of American world-class athletic competition as we celebrate our nation's 250th year. The World Cup will also be an incredibly significant economic opportunity for countless American workers and businesses. It's expected to drive more than $30 billion, Johnny. I don't know about that. That sounds like a lot of money.
No, that's true.
Are you sure?
100%.
How much does the country get out of that?
30 billion.
20%? No, do we get like a percentage of the gross or anything?
That's for negotiation.
That's right. Yeah. And it's going to create nearly 200,000 jobs for America. Since the creation of the White House FIFA Task Force earlier this year, Secretary Rubio's team at the State Department has worked tirelessly with the Department of Homeland Security to ensure that soccer fans from all around the world are properly vetted and able to come to the United States next summer easily. Before I took office, it would often take a year to get a travel visa, but because of the administration's hard work, now in more than 80% of the world, think of that, the wait time for a visa is 60 days or less. For those who intend to join us for the World Cup, I strongly encourage you to apply right away. And I want to thank FIFA Task Force and Secretary Rubio for the great job. Marco's doing a fantastic job in many ways, too. So I want to just thank you all for a great job. Marco, you're doing a great job. Beyond even this, we're also creating what we're calling the FIFA Prioritized Appointment Scheduling System. That's a hard one for most people to remember, but it's there nevertheless. And this will allow World Cup ticket holders with long wait times to opt with FIFA for a prioritized interview. And I've directed my administration to do everything within the power to make the 2026 World Cup an unprecedented success. I think it's going to be the greatest. And we are setting records on ticket sales. Nobody's ever really, and FIFA's never, you know, if you look at the numbers, nobody's ever seen anything like the kind of numbers we're doing. The early ticket sales are through the roof, and much of it is even sold out. So congratulations, Johnny. And I'd like to ask Johnny to say a few words. He's really done an incredible job. He's got unbelievable spirit and personality and talent and intelligence, I always like to say, because it's all a part of it. But the job you've done is based on what's happening, unprecedented. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Thank you very much. I would like to start really by thanking you, Mr. President, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Noem, Andrew, your entire team for approving and making this very important announcement today. The FIFA Pass is being announced, the prioritized appointment scheduling system. That's the way people will remember it. So if you have a ticket for the World Cup, you can have a prioritized appointment to get your visa, because we said it the very first time we met, Mr. President, America welcomes the world. America will welcome the world here next year. We will have between 6 and 7 million tickets sold for the matches. We will have between 5 and 10 million people coming to America from all over the world to enjoy the World Cup. And with this FIFA Pass, we can make sure that those who buy a ticket that are legitimate football fans or soccer fans, they can come and attend the World Cup in the best conditions, starting from getting their visa and then coming, of course, in the country to enjoy. You mentioned the economic impact, the 30 billion, 200,000 jobs, and this is just for the World Cup, and we will build on that to make soccer even greater here. You are the #1 country in the world, the United States of America, Mr. President. You have to be the #1 country as well in the #1 sport in the world. So we have to work for that, and we will do that, and the World Cup will be very, very significant in this respect. So big, big thank you to you, to the White House Task Force, to everyone involved, and we are celebrating next year not just the 250 years, but also the greatest and most inclusive World Cup ever. We'll have 6 billion people watching. We have the draw coming up on the 5th of December here at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. 1 billion people watching the draw to find out who plays whom and where. We have 32 teams already qualified. Before or by tomorrow night, we'll have 42 out of 48 qualified. So a quarter of the world will be here, and we are looking very much forward. So thanks for the support, thanks for the great work, and always happy to be here at home, if I can say that.
You are home. We are. There's your beautiful trophy right there.
All right, you were just listening to President Donald Trump speaking in the Oval Office. He was meeting with the White House task force for the FIFA World Cup in 2026. So just for some context, the FIFA World Cup events are going to be held in 2026 in Canada, US, and Mexico, so 26 cities. The ones in the US, those cities include Boston, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Atlanta, Miami, Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, Seattle, and the San Francisco Bay Area. So the event, all of those events should be kicking off in June 2026. Again, Canada, the United States, and Mexico. I believe most matches, there are matches in Atlanta, Boston, Dallas. I think those are where most of the matches are going to be in the United States. So yeah, so 26 cities in June 2026. So that was President Donald Trump meeting with the White House task force on FIFA. All right, so we have just a few minutes left, and before we sign off, we wanted to mention a big event tomorrow. 13 News Now is teaming up with our friends at Odyssey to help families put food on the table this holiday season. So you see a QR code there for our Neighbors Helping Neighbors food drive. If you use your phone to scan that, we'll give you a few seconds to do that. That will help you give online to this food drive. We just want to make sure that everybody, even those who are impacted by the government shutdown or had a temporary loss of their SNAP benefits, just anyone facing food insecurity in Hampton Roads, we want to make sure that they have help this holiday season and they have something to eat for the holidays, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. So 13 News Now members of our team are going to be at Pembroke Square parking lot near the Walgreens tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., accepting non-perishable food donations in person. If you cannot make it out to Pembroke Square parking lot tomorrow near the Walgreens, then you can scan the QR code on your screen and you can donate online that way. So either way, anything helps. We really thank you for your generosity during this holiday season. Okay, so we got a couple minutes left. Speaking of Thanksgiving, Naya, we were just talking about this earlier. Do you have a favorite Thanksgiving dish?
I do. I would say the stuffing, or some people call it dressing, and the little Thanksgiving rolls from Walmart.
Yeah. Those are good. The stuffing's good. I feel like it depends. Some stuffings I really love, and then I've had stuffings where I'm kind of like, and I know turkey is supposed to be the star of the show, but I'm more of a side dish gal. Like, I love, this is probably controversial, I love green bean casserole. I know some people would think that is a red flag, but I love a green bean casserole.
I'm going to be honest, I've never even had it before.
What? Okay,
Never.
that's a red flag.
I will say I wouldn't be against trying it, but I just love collard greens on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't want someone to make that instead of collard greens. But.
Yeah. See, mashed potatoes and mac and cheese are also classics, and I'm working on Thanksgiving, so I am cooking, but I'm probably going to do something like non-traditional that I can like whip up real quick, like deviled eggs, so I can at least contribute a little bit.
Yeah.
Without having to, like, I can just come home from work and get something ready, so real fast.
I'm thinking about cooking. I might make a little dish. Stay tuned. We'll see. I'm going to see how I'm feeling.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have 1 minute left, and so I think it's time to sign off.
Yeah.
This was definitely a journey. We Our first time, both kind of talking on the stream a little bit more.
I feel like we did really good, though. You did really good. On-air personality.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed listening.
It was very different. I'm used to being the one that just chimes in occasionally and presses the buttons, and so this was very different. Tomorrow it'll be back to normal. So, for those of you who are like, bring Connor back.
I'm sure they're excited to hear you too, though.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you guys for joining us for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus, or maybe you were watching on YouTube. But I'm Sarah Calloway and Nia Campbell. Goodbye.